this is one of those kind of sequels where you could also watch it in reverse, and it would also pretty much make sense to you either way, right? So overall, like, kind of, no matter what order you kind of watch it on, I was definitely satisfied with the way the saga kind of ends and how they are not trying to build a larger Baahubali universe at the end of the movie. How it's good to see very, very large scale movies come to almost ending that you're expecting, but it's an ending where they're not trying to sell you any extra shit. Like, this is it. This is the story I'm telling. This is the end of the story. And I thought, like I kind of mentioned earlier, the fight sequences from the whole end of the movie, and when she's like doing the walk with like the fire on her head and he's like fighting in the background, and throughout the fight, he's gonna win. Obviously he's gonna win. Like, Balaldev has no shot.
It's a good fight,
but
though.
Balaldev, like his weapons are kind of creative. Like he has some cool sequences when he fights. They're talking back and forth. So I definitely thought it was a kind of satisfying sequel. I can definitely see why the second one did the numbers it did in Bollywood in terms of box office. I think it's the highest, right, Sam? I think it's the highest grossing film in Indian cinema.
Let me fact check while you go.
I know that it's 1, 2, 3 between this one and the first one and KGF. So I don't know what order, but I think that this one actually did insane numbers when it came out because of
I think this is number 2.
This is number 2.
Dangal is number 1.
Oh, that's actually a new movie. Oh, that's kind of like new.
Well,
like
actually,
recently.
Dangal, I think, is
like
2016.
2016, yeah. One of my coworkers, funnily enough, just showed me this the other day. She's like, "Oh, I watched it. One of my favorite actors is on it." So maybe we can do
that one grossed 2024 crore or $311 million.
Okay.
Baahubali 2 pulled in 278 mil.
270, yeah. So 278 mil, and that's massive. That's massive for Bollywood, and also the budget for this movie was not that crazy still. So I definitely thought that they kind of leveraged cultural tropes, but also went outside of them in certain instances. Even the kind of elaborate set pieces is going outside almost regular indie. Like, it's not only focusing on like the one character 1v1ing the whole army by itself. There's a larger kind of play happening, right?
Yeah.
And also like the super creative weapons too. No, I definitely thought it was satisfying. What do you think, Sam?
So 2 cents.
2
yes.
cents. Oh yeah.
Osama?
Oh yeah. Shit. Yeah. 1 cent. I was satisfied, but it's a 1 cent. No, it's a 2 cents.
I gotta give Chris that cue to drop that ka-ching. Nah, for me, I'm gonna have to agree. I touched on it a little bit earlier, so I won't go too in depth on it right now. But I feel like these two films complemented each other in very puzzle pieces like manner. I think, like I mentioned, the first one, all of the weaknesses of the first one just so happened to be the strengths of the second movie. The second movie, like I mentioned, really leans into the action, leans into the motivated actions of each of the characters. The first one was really the backstory, the emotional foundations of this entire story, giving me a reason for why I should care about the story. And then the second one is really giving me that story playing out like a Shakespearean tragedy or drama, as Admir mentioned. And so for me, from that perspective, I don't think any one of them could exist in isolation. So I think the two as a pair really work really well as a tandem. So it's a solid 2 cents for me, and I'm actually really glad that we wrapped up this chapter of Baahubali because I solidly enjoyed it. What about you, Admir?
Yeah, 100%. I think together, the story from start to finish, even with the way sort of, maybe I thought it could have been a little bit different told spliced-wise, but it's a very fun movie, and I think that's really key here. Like, again, we talked about this with, I think, Lord of the Rings and RRR to some degree, but like epic films in the 2020s are rare, and even the 2010s. Like, I remember back when I didn't watch movies like this. I remember like Troy came out. I remember like Gladiator came out. You have these movies that come out and they're huge. Like, they're massive set pieces. Yeah, Osama's favorite movie, right? They're like they're emotional.
Top five.
Top five. They're these huge films, and I think like we get long movies nowadays. We don't necessarily get the epics, I think, that maybe at least Western media used to create. So it's great to see that this is something that is happening in spades in Tollywood and in Bollywood. And I think it's just fun to be on these adventures, on these long adventures, without it being 7-8 movies, or without it being a TV show, with it being like, it's 2 movies, it's 6 hours, that's it, right? And so I love
kind of
that.
like a season, if you were to watch a season in a row.
Yeah.
Like just 6 hours of content. I think I haven't seen it. I think you both have, so check me on that. But would you consider Interstellar an epic?
A space epic. Yeah, I think we've definitely seen space epics. I think like Star Wars could probably fall into that category. I just, off the top of my head, I could be wrong. I'm sure I'm not 100% accurate on it, but it just, in my head, it just seems to be like such an old school thing. You know, like I've seen in recent times, I'm talking about 3 or 4 past years, like the longest movie that comes to head for me is The Irishman, but that's not an epic. That's just a really long movie told over a long span of time, right? And that's different than an epic, right? And so you have these movies, and we talked about Rajamouli a lot in the first Baahubali and in RRR. It's great to see him leaning on, of course, his own culture and, of course, the perhaps the religious foundation to build these characters, build these stories for audiences that haven't been used to it. So I loved it, and I'm not giving credit for the sake of him being different, but he did it well. And I think that's what's really important here. He did it really well. A part of me wants to rewatch it with things in chronological order. I think there maybe is something to be gained from having that different perspective. Not to say that I think it might be better, but it would maybe give me a different opinion about the way Rajamouli decided to tell the story if I see it maybe linearly. Maybe things are lost. Maybe dramatic moments are lost when you tell the story in that fashion. I'm sure someone's chopped it up on Reddit somewhere where it's all linear. It probably exists. But for me, it is a solid 2 cents. And one thing also, I'm going to throw this out there, that boat sail scene when they're dancing and singing and all that shit, outrageously fantastic, by the way. So super cool. I loved it because it's like fantastical in a closed moment. So it almost doesn't matter that it's fantastical, and
it's like a mini music video in the middle of
the movie. It's just in the middle of it. It was so fun. I wrote it down. I couldn't introduce it at any other point during my comments, so I thought I'd throw it all the way at the end. But yeah, anything else before we go into scores here, boys?
Yeah, I mean, there's like, I think we'd be remiss to just mention like the scope and I think the grandiosity that I think this film undertakes, especially the second one, the amount of massive scale fight scenes, the amount of VFX, the amount of just like action that the relentless action that the actors have to go through. I have so much respect for the actors, the director, all the filmmakers involved in this film after watching it. And I think to your point, like the best way to describe it is just end to end fun. It gives you that Mad Max, just nonstop action feel throughout the entire film, and I definitely felt it here in this like really closed off desert-like kingdom scenario where he's just doing all these like massive things. And then at what point do we start to question Rajamouli's relationship with like brotherhood and stuff like that? Because now this is Baahubali 1 and 2 and RRR, where like the main story centers around these 2 guys who are seemingly like brother type figures, but are warring. Like, is everything all right back home with the kid SS? I don't know, man.
I think it's great when you can delve into any artist's like entire backlog of art. You learn everything you need to know about them from the things that they make. I mean, we haven't touched on all his movies, obviously, but it's a really good point. There must be something that he sees interesting in telling these stories about brothers or families or things like that. No,
it's a rare one, I'd say, especially out west. Like, you don't get too many brotherly stories. It's always, man, woman, or maybe even like parent and child stories, but not really too many about this duality of 2 guys. Especially like, I think, not to cheapen Hollywood more than it already is, but I think it's hard to sell a movie on the idea of just like 2 guys going through war and love and friendship and whatever else like with each other, and I think these movies take that on really well.
I also feel like that's 100% a cultural thing too, because we all know or have people back home who you're like, they're taking someone else's property over, or like, they're making a move on your shit. So culturally, from our side of the world, it's your family does that to you. Here, it's like no one gives a shit. Your family is neither backing you or neither like it's kind of like apathetic relationship.
Yeah.
Back home, it's like if you got X uncle taking care of X things, he might not be acting in like full like his best year to yourself, you know.
Everybody got that uncle.
Yeah,
man.
everyone. No. I'm
Yo,
just saying,
just manage the property, and that's it.
Because I
bro.
know,
Keep
because
it
I know you
moving.
guys know. You guys, even if you don't have it, I'm not saying I have them directly in my family, but you hear of things like that from other people. So that's 100% a cultural thing where it's like certain people, when you put like a piece of bread in front of them, they're gonna make a move. And certain people
Right.
won't, and that's what all his movies seem to like kind of emphasize. Like there's certain people who are gonna act a certain way when you give them incentives, while other people won't, and that's like the
All right, so
dichotomy.
which one of the brothers on this podcast would be making that move?
None of us. So because the three of us won't, then that means in another room there's three dudes that will statistically. So we're
The
good.
caveat is we don't have YouTube ads yet.
Oof.
Wow.
So
This dude said
we'll
y'all
see.
unpaid and y'all gonna stay unpaid.
Quick.
I'm just
quick
saying
check,
it's
quick
easy.
check.
It's easy to chat shit about Tiger Woods' morality when you don't have the same questions in your life. That's all I'm gonna say. So I'm not in no Bilal Dev situation.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'd
To
act.
be honest, yeah.
Quick
I'm
check
not,
to-
I'm not there for the throne either. So
Yeah.
Let's make sure Chris is listening to this edit. So Chris, put your place your bet on which of us three would probably scam the other two when YouTube
Scheme,
money comes
fam.
into the scene.
Yeah, that's
Put
good.
it up on the screen, and if it's me, then tough luck.
that's
My
kind of
bad.
crazy,
That's OD.
yo.
He's gonna put in all three of us, bro. I know this game. I know him. No, I think it's a really good point, and I you see how he maybe explores the theme of brotherhood in this one. With they're not blood related, correct?
No, like adopted.
They're
Adopted. He's
they're
like
adopted brothers.
But they're cousins.
Yeah, and you have it in RRR. It's two friends who end up having this brotherly
Exactly.
relationship. So you see him exploring it through different perspectives. That's a really good question, Osama. I was trying to think through my head in terms of like familial brother relationships. Hilariously, Step Brothers come to mind.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think
Bro,
of, like,
I
what
knew you to
else.
say that.
Five Brothers with Mark Wahlberg.
That's there's another one. There's nothing in terms of like epics or like huge movies.
Yeah.
I mean, at least Tarantino's usually really good with these. Like in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he has it with Brad Pitt and Leo's character, and then he has it also
very
in
sexist casting director. Yeah.
I actually didn't watch that.
you didn't watch Once Upon a
I
Time.
know.
What'd you say? He does the same thing in Django. So he has Jamie Foxx's character with Christopher Waltz's character. So they end up having this sort of. It's not a brotherly relationship,
like
I would say, but I think
brotherhood,
maybe
I
the
guess.
closest thing
Brotherhood
that
of-
I would, whatever that is. But yeah, you're right. And maybe it is a little bit rare here. And it was, I think for me, it was the most refreshing when we watched RRR, when it was like, oh yeah, it's just like they're just friends with each other. That's cool. That's
I
nice.
love that like friend enemy dynamic.
Yes.
Just take us back to Dragon Ball, man.
W. Vegeta's my king.
That's how we'll wrap this podcast.
Vegeta's my king, baby.